Charles so furious at Harry's fabricated story about his teddy bear. Hello, friends! Welcome to breaking royal news about the notorious hypocritical couple, Harry and Meghan Markle, on our Royal Trust channel. According to Maureen Callahan in the Daily Mail, Harry writes that Charles takes his childhood teddy bear everywhere due to the emotional scars he bears from childhood bullying. If more people had a teddy bear, there would potentially be a lot less anger and hate in the world. I'm 62 and still have my very first stuffed animals, Inky and Blackie, and woe to anyone who talks badly about them. King or no king, Charles is a person first and foremost. Despite whatever mistakes he has made, he has overwhelmingly tried to use his position for the good of his country. The Prince's trust has changed thousands of lives, and Charles was ahead of his time on environmental issues. Charles does not deserve this, particularly regarding Charles being ahead of his time in regard to his impactful environmental work. I learned that he made his very first speech about environmental concerns way back in the 1970s. I know that he is quite involved with the UN's climate change conference, but years ago committed himself to initiatives pertaining to sustainable farming and growing, bolstering the UK's wool industry, and championing the needs of endangered wildlife. Charles also established initiatives to assist youth, including a Muslim youth mentoring campaign. Recently, William dedicated himself to the creation of the Earthshot Prize, joining his father's commitment to the environment. As a fun aside, Charles's treasured car is a decades-old Aston Martin, which has been modified to run on surplus English white wine. Hopefully, he can be known for his accomplishments and not simply as Diana's cheating husband. Bet that story was shared by a father to comfort his son during sad times. Shame on Harry for using it against him. I think it's worse because Harry doesn't actually say what they said. He paraphrases it. He is an untrustworthy narrator, to say the least. Charles went to Paris. He brought Diana back under his standard. I will always remember how sad he looked on that day when he arrived back in London with her body. He was heartbroken. You could see his pain. Another also witnessed. I remember that movement vividly when we saw King Charles III in Paris after claiming Diana's body. I was stunned. Absolutely stunned. The emotion that King Charles III displayed was genuine, and you're absolutely correct. You could see the pain. It changed my mind about him as well, a total of 180. Only a good man would feel that pain. He held it together for his boys. Harry doesn't include that in his book. When Charles did that, I forgave him for all his mistakes. He cared about her and honored her, as did Philip, to walk behind her coffin. The boys were brave on that day. The men of her family honored her. Harry is a piece of it to not mention it and also to lie about that day. He was not forced. His father and grandfather and uncle said they would walk with them. That day, I remember it so well, and it pains me to think that after 25 years, he says he was forced. He's an asswipe. Even if he did feel that he was coerced into walking behind her coffin, his going on about it as if this was some intentional abuse makes no sense. His father and grandfather walking behind her coffin were a sign of immense respect. Had they decided he was too young and not asked him to participate, he'd now be complaining that it was abusive for them to have excluded him. Charles wore a blue suit to the funeral, as Diana had loved that color on him. I had been firmly on Diana's side prior to the funeral, but I could tell from my television across the pond just how grief-stricken King Charles was. For his kids, sure, but I think he knew and felt the enormity of her loss. Camilla stayed behind. She didn't give any interviews about Diana, hasn't badmouthed her, and didn't turn the tragedy into the Camilla hour. She sat back and supported the family privately and not intruding into the kids' grief. Even when she and King Charles married, they kept it private, very respectful to the boys. That's why I'm so infuriated with Harold. He could have had things much, much worse. His privilege has rendered him an utter fool. While Camilla kept a low profile for years after Diana's death, not 1 week has gone by since the passing of the Queen without Harry and Meghan in the media. What convinced me the most is the modest wedding King Charles and Queen Camilla had. No fuss, private, low profile. Since then, she has worked countless engagements and with not a single whine in the public. And remember, she has been bad-mouthed in the media for almost 20 years. And Camilla decided not to use a title that she was 100% entitled to use out of respect for Diana. This is why I don't feel bad about her using the queen consort instead of the princess consort, which is what the royal family website said she was going to use until the queen said that it was her wish for Camilla to be stylized as queen consort after she passes. And they did have to wait 8 years after Diana died before the queen was like, fine, you can get married. And they've now been married longer than Charles was married to Diana. As she writes, "Know what's pitiful? Taking the private pain and vulnerabilities of those closest to you and mocking them for public consumption and profit. That is not Harry's story to tell. It is Charles. It is intensely private. Harry is a modern-day Judas. Furthermore, I don't want to know that William is circumcised, how or where or why Harry lost his virginity, that Harry is fixated on his mummy, that he thinks Meghan is magic, and why, none of it. Harry is intensely sick. The resentments he harbors, the overwhelming jealousy, the rage, and the appalling lack of character and intellect are evident. This is worse than seeing Britney Spears shave her head and beat a car with an umbrella. It's worse than watching Robert Downey Jr. spiral out of drug addiction, watching Michael Jackson destroy his face, or witnessing George Michael fall out of a moving car, or pick up an undercover cop in a public bathroom. The only thing I can compare Harry's downfall to is how the young, handsome, sexy Elvis became the fat, drug-addled, gross Elvis. That is how I see Harry now, going from charming and fun to morose and dark. Edit. This is not a dig at Elvis. I am an Elvis fan. I'm trying to compare their mental unraveling. There is something so distasteful about this. Writing with resentment about William getting the bigger bedroom at Balmoral, for God's sake, Harry. You are staying at your family's castle in the Scottish Highlands, and all you can do is whine that it's not good enough. He is so unbelievably ungrateful, and his response is to turn around and hurt everyone with these revelations. It's disgusting and disturbing. My God, the gall of them both to think that she had any right to be there, all her previous behavior aside. I would never have inserted myself into my in-laws' private grief. The pair of them are grotesque, and this book will be their downfall. Also, think about poor Charles. He probably knows his mother has only a few hours left, and he's got to choose his words ultra carefully, so he doesn't give Harry any specific words he can publish in his book. Charles should cut Harry loose. It's too much hurt, and too much work in the future if he doesn't cut ties. But there is a certain level of schadenfreude in watching Harry put the final nail in the coffin of what was once a positive reputation. Honestly, I feel like he's earned this after all the hateful shit he's fine and said over the years. His attempt at publicly shaming and bullying his father makes me feel nothing but sadness for Charles. I was bullied as a child, and I still carry trauma from it, so I relate to him. But now his own son is trying to shame him on the world stage. So what if Charles has a teddy bear? As if that's any more ridiculous than literally keeping your dead mother's hair on your bedside table. As if the entire country didn't just come out onto the streets, leaving Paddington teddy bears for the Queen. Am I supposed to find Charles having a teddy bear embarrassing or something? I absolutely agree. Bullying leaves lasting scars. I am not a Charles fan at all. I know Diana wasn't perfect, but she was young, and I think Charles was cruel at times to her, and vice versa. However, this makes me feel bad for him. The royals are born into their position and give the public parts of their lives in trade for the position and all that comes with it. Oversimplified, I know. But some things are private. They are human and entitled to hold some parts of themselves back for their families and their own identity. This is horrible for Harry, who claims to be so misunderstood and abused, to disclose. It is the cruelty of the highest degree. Harry even campaigned for mental health, and yet cannot have compassion for a man who was traumatized as a child. I see no issue whatsoever with carrying a teddy bear around. That's more healthy than turning to alcohol or drugs, which is what a lot of people do. A lot of children see their parents suffer from addiction because of childhood trauma. Good for you, Charles, for finding something that comforts you. I don't even understand how Harry can go so low. This is beyond sad. An audience member shared, "A couple of years ago, a very dear older friend of mine in her 60s now told me she went to her childhood school and was flooded by memories of how a teacher abused her when she was in 2nd grade. She sat on the steps and sobbed. She was crying about something that had happened nearly half a century earlier, and her voice still quivered when she told me about it on the phone. For Mr. I am a mental health advocate to expose his father's very well-documented childhood trauma even further. In a book in which he complains about Check's notes, yes, his own very well-documented childhood trauma is so hypocritical it's almost breathtaking. I was laughing at the beginning of the day. I'm not laughing anymore. What he has done to his family is despicable. You just know Meghan is telling him he's so brave and strong for telling his truth. But you know what? There are 3 sides to every story. Yours, theirs, and the truth. He knows the institution won't allow a blow-by-blow rebuttal of his claims. He has fed his own family to the wolves. He's thrown them overboard in a hurricane with an anchor roped to their necks. He isn't brave. He is sick and he is still scared. My God. Imagine what his mother and grandmother would be thinking. And Prince Philip? Poor King Charles. I cannot even imagine. Honestly, I think that Harry is awful, just awful for this, and I'm not making excuses. I also don't think that it would be happening if he wasn't with Meghan. He's over there alone and unwell, and she's encouraging it. He trusts her completely, and she's deaf, saying things like, "Be honest, put it all out there, and be your true self," because no one shares their family's private moments like that. Especially the bit about Charles. Why? Why say that about your dad? He wasn't in school or even alive when that happened. It's not like he experienced this with Charles, so the relevancy isn't there. Also, he has his mom's hair by his bedside. I'll take Charles with a teddy over Harry with Diana's hair any day. Also, I'm a full-ass grown adult woman that is a literal mental health professional, and I have a blanket I sleep with at night that was given to me by someone special because it reminds me of them and brings me comfort. I even travel with said blanket. Life is hard. When we find something that comforts us, we cling to it. Charles has been known for being sensitive for years and talking to trees or plants or something like that, so this news comes as no surprise to many, I think. It's just deeply personal. And for all we know, it could have come from someone that died, and he gives him the reminder. Also, seeing as he used it to get through one of the worst times of his life, I can see why it would be so meaningful and symbolic to Charles. Evidence that Harry is severely mentally ill. From US Weekly, the Duke of Sussex, 38, recalled in his memoir, Spare, he received 2 signs that he was going to be a first-time parent. The first one came when he and Meghan, 41, were in Scotland and stumbled upon a group of singing seals while boating. Harry remembered his wife singing to the animals whom he claimed sang back. She really is magic, I thought. Even the seals know it. He fell asleep while his wife was taking 2 at-home pregnancy tests in their Nottingham cottage bathroom. When he woke up, Meghan had placed the wands on his nightstand. I only kept a few things there, among them the blue box with my mother's hair, he wrote. Right? I thought. Good. Let's see what Mummy can do with this situation. A few moments later, the couple looked at both tests and found they were positive. The duo hugged and kissed in celebration. Once the news set in, the Duke remembered thinking, "Thank you, Selkies," which are a mythological creature originating in the Northern Isles of Scotland. "Thank you, Mummy," Harry concluded, hinting that Diana was again watching over him as he prepared to become a dad. This will do nothing but make the royal family more popular and destroy any goodwill left for Harry and his wife. He is so ill he cannot see how inappropriate this book is. There is something visceral and disturbing about betraying these confidences. Harry obviously needs professional help, but Meghan doesn't. She isn't mentally ill, and she let Harry put this out there for the world to see. She is milking him for every last dime she can squeeze out. I'm wagering Meggie won't stay much longer now that this sad tale has backfired so spectacularly. She looks as foolish and vengeful as Harry, and Meghan doesn't take well to public criticism. An outspoken insider said, "I have to agree with you. Harry appears to be very mentally disturbed, using his family the way he is and so obviously glaringly jealous of William for everything. Being the heir, having Catherine looking like their mother, making it all look effortless. I mean, we could go on and on. This man is truly pathetic. I used to dislike him. Now he is just hateful, appallingly so, abominable and absolutely intolerable. They really do deserve each other. I feel like there are no words that are strong enough to truly describe these two shitheads. Harry and Meghan are truly vile pieces of shit. They are outright bullies with zero boundaries and no filters. Nobody wants you to spill your family's secrets and shame them. I'm American, so I have no investment in the royals, but this makes me so sympathetic to them. Knowing Harry and Meghan can spill secrets at any point for whatever reason is disturbing. This is not Harry's story to tell. What trash." Another commented, "I had no idea until finding this news that Harry was as morally bankrupt as he actually is. I initially assumed he was rebelling against the system and marrying a woman who dominated and manipulated him. What I've learned is that this nastiness was always in him. He just hadn't found someone who told him to harness it and go against his family. Meghan is the same. Resentful, forever a victim, and nasty. They're a match made in hell, and I only pity their children who will never know, truly know, almost all of their maternal and paternal family lines because of these two. It's a slow-motion tragedy for those babies. What do you think about Harry's way of bad-mouthing his father to get attention? Let us know your thoughts below in the comments section. We hope you have found this helpful video. Don't forget to leave a like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you like it. Thank you for watching this newsletter. See you in the next videos. Goodbye!